we talked last time about John Calipari and Kentucky. What's going to happen? He's back. $33 million is tough to do. Tough to do. Cal is coming back. He says no more Bahamas trip in the summer. They're going to work on defense. I don't know. He says he's changing some stuff up. We will see what happens. He's got another good recruiting class coming in. We will see who stays, who goes, who they pick out on the portal. Cal was the master of coaching 18-year-olds 19-year-olds when that would win you the title. Now, particularly with the COVID year, that has not been the case. But he can get old if he wants. This is the thing. Kentucky can do whatever it wants. If it wants to win on the graduate transfer portal, they can go get those guys or not. But thoughts on John Calipari returning to Kentucky, Pat?
Yeah, first of all, this I think is largely driven by the disastrous contract that Mitch Barnhart gave him, and I think Mitch has probably escaped a little bit too unscathed in terms of being on the hook for this terrible deal. We talked about it a lot on the last podcast, so I won't belabor it. But to give any coach a lifetime deal, and I did it in like 2018 or so because of whether he was maybe going to UCLA, was a panic move, an overreaction for a guy whose best days were already behind him at that point and has done nothing since then to earn it. Yeah, Calipari's going to change. I'll miss the August trip to Canada or the Bahamas or wherever where they play a bunch of like janitors and waiters and win by 70 points and the fan base is all, oh my God, we're going to be so good. Holy cow, we're going 40-0. So I'll miss that. But yes, perhaps they should stay in Lexington and play a little defense. I don't know. It's a thought. Learn some of those sorts of things. They'll go out. Yes, I mean, as you said, Dan, they'll get as many high-level transfers as they can or they need. We'll see how they put it together. They do have some excellent freshmen coming in. I think the biggest question is whether there's any chance Reed Sheppard would stay for a second year, just as a Kentucky guy who could, I'm sure, make a massive amount of NIL. I would imagine everybody else who's draftable will probably go. But at this point, look, they've had plenty of talent for years. They've done nothing with it. 2-7 in the postseason since 2020 in the last 4 postseasons. It's a disaster from Kentucky standards, and the fans are not real happy that he's coming back. So, we've heard it before in the offseason. It's going to change this, going to change that. And inevitably, they'll start bringing in players, and then by the end of the summer, everybody's going to be talking, watch out for Kentucky, watch out for Kentucky. Maybe this year it'll finally be true, but right now it's not.
I think if you were going to fire John Calipari, you need to have a plan set up, which will lead us into our next school.
Yes.
But you can't, to just fire him right now and then kind of flail about and say, oh, I hope this, and maybe they'd made some inquiries too, But it would be one thing if, and I'm just, just making this up, but if Jay Wright was like, hey, gives them the little head nod to somebody who gives the head nod to somebody who gives the head nod to Mitch Barnhart, and you go, all right, I'm going to fire John. I got $33 million because I'm going to get Jay Wright. Or, boy, Billy Donovan gets fired after 33 games next year in the, Chicago, and then he's just sitting there. Now maybe it's a different call. But to just fire John Calipari right now, you're going to pay this bill, and then who are you getting? And if you don't have, I have no doubt Kentucky will attract a high-quality candidate that is not currently on the market because they don't want to be. They're not interested in these other jobs, or it's still in the tournament. But you kind of want to have a pretty good idea what you're getting, because John Calipari has not done a good enough job the last X number of years, but he hasn't been that bad. They still have very good regular seasons. They still play an exciting brand of basketball. They still bring in a lot of top recruits, which Kentucky fan has been accustomed to. And so it certainly has not been enough by any means, and they were justified if they wanted to fire him, but it hasn't been an abject disaster. And you can only need to go down the road to Louisville, which I think is not as coveted of a job as Kentucky, but should be pretty coveted. And with the tradition and the fan base and the ACC membership and all of that, at least temporary, whatever the ACC means at this point, but certainly for basketball, is a big deal. And they are, last I saw, we'll see by now you might have a coach, but like if you believe social media and some of the reports out of Louisville, Richard Pitino, we're going to bring a Pitino 2.0. Unbelievable. Nothing against Richard Pitino, sins of the father, but still, like, really? Not a candidate, but Bob Huggins trying to say he'd like to be a candidate. I'm sure he would. They could do worse, though. If Huggs is sober, we had a potential, wild stories. Potential death threats were being given to candidates that turned out to not be true. It's man, I love you guys at Louisville. Like it's just a mess until it's beautiful. Like when they're beautiful, they are like winning national titles, putting Lamar Jackson out there. When they are a mess, they are a beautiful mess. And right now, it is. We're not sure. They're in the chop of the Ohio River right now, trying to figure it out.
By the way, didn't Huggins say maybe a couple weeks ago or so? He said that he had been sober for 300 days, the last 300 days, and I believe he was arrested for the DUI 280 days before that.
Yeah.
Well, close enough. Look, we hope he is doing well. I don't want to make fun of anyone's recovery, but I don't know. I have a hard time saying anything bad about Bob Huggins, but maybe needs a little more time. Not the Louisville job.
Well, no, he does not need the Louisville job. He's also not getting the Louisville job. But it's shocking, I know. But that's a major breaking news point. But yeah, Huggs had people calling Louisville on his behalf, like maybe Saturday or Friday last week. So there's that. And then, yes, when Richard Pitino's name came up, I was like, okay, this has now become the most Louisville story ever. And it's just, as you said, Dan, kind of the constant churn of what the hell is happening there. That's been the state of the basketball program since 2015, since I wrote the story about the entertainment in the basketball dorm that led to the book, that led to the postseason ban, that led to all kinds of stuff. And then it's just literally has been one thing after another since then. Louisville just can't get out of its own weird way. And this search, which frankly almost started in December. They almost fired Kenny Payne in December when he lost by like 15 to Arkansas State. And they should have. Really, they shouldn't have brought him back this year, but they should have gotten it going then. And instead, but still, they knew they were going to hire a coach. And they just haven't been able to line it up where we got our guy, period, no matter what. And I think Dusty May took him to the altar and maybe jilted him at the altar. But you got to have a backup plan that you fire on immediately, and that clearly has not been the case. And so, yes, we reached a point where Josh Schertz from Indiana State, who has the Sycamores in the NIT Final Four, which will be in Hinkle Fieldhouse, which will be an Indiana State party, was like, he was on the list, but he was down the list. And it's like, whether he's given an indication, hey, we're going to have to go another direction. And so he's right now close to getting a deal done with St. Louis. And all of a sudden, nature abhors a vacuum and more names start coming up. And, Richard Pitino, what could go wrong? I mean, if you want America to continue to look at Louisville basketball and say, what the hell is going on down there? Hiring Richard Pitino would probably accomplish that. He may get in and do a fine job if he's the guy, and I don't know that he is. But to Dan's point, we may have this may end up being settled by the time this podcast airs. But no matter who they bring in now, an edgy, easily freaked out fan base could be further on edge and more freaked out.
The seats in the press conference room are getting a little dusty, huh? About 4 days.
They did set those up on Friday. Yeah, 5 days and counting.
Yeah, it didn't quite happen. Well, it'll be interesting to see where those ones go.